Hello class and welcome to the Excel demo. Excel's all about numeric data. So whereas Word and Docs, right, we're a focus on text processing, on word processing, um, Excel's all about numbers. So of course we're working with numbers, we have rows and columns. This is why it's called tabular data, so it's organized in a table. So if you notice our columns here are A, B, C, D. And our rows here are 1, 2, 3, 4. So kind of like Battleship, right? You can identify each cell or each little box in the table by its letter and by its number. So this would be B2, A1, C3, and also just some highlighting to let us know. But yeah, let's go ahead and enter some cell values, right? So that's our first thing on the menu is how to submit values to each cell. So it's simple. You just click on a cell of your choice and you type in a value. So here we can type in 1. If you hit enter, it'll go down a cell, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just hitting enter to quickly navigate to the next cell. Sometimes you want to go horizontally. So here you could do, I'm going to type in my 2. You'd hit tab instead of enter. So I hit tab, takes me to the next cell, next column in this case. Yeah, so these little boxes call them cells. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also type in text, right, which is usually important when we're creating a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet on Excel. These headers give our numbers meaning, right? So let's go ahead and type them in. So let's make this header, we'll call it the date. And we'll call this, let's say you were typing in, keeping track of your pay. I have heard of people who use Excel to keep track of their paychecks to make sure there's no discrepancies. So it's definitely an excellent tool that you can use in your day-to-day even. So let's see date, let's put pay rate, let's put hours worked. We'll just call it hours. We'll be more specific, we'll put hours worked. And then let's see, we're gonna put total pay. All right, so just as important as submitting values to the cell is also formatting the cell, right? Just like we do in Word. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make these center alignment. So it just looks a little bit nicer. So if you wanna select a cell, you simply click on it and you can start formatting that individual cell. In this case, we're gonna format this whole row. So you just click and hold and drag your mouse. And now I'm highlighting multiple cells. A quick way to highlight an entire row or column is by clicking on the letter for the column or number for the row. And notice it does highlight everything in this row. That's all the way down, it keeps going infinitely. It'll format the entire, row there. See if I can make my way back. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and do the whole row. So I'm gonna center a line. Remember, if you wanna find a setting, first you go to your toolbar. You can use the search bar. If you're familiar with the tabs, you can definitely use the tabs. So like if I'm inserting a picture, I'd go to insert. Home is usually where the formatting, most important tools are at. So here I can see center text. If I forget, I can always search for it and put center. It says center text, and there you go. My text is centered. Let's go ahead and add a fill. So if I want to add a fill, it's always this little bucket. Fill color, remember you can always look that up on the search bar. I'm going to go with a nice blue. Now that black is not going to really pop anymore, so I'm going to change the text color. Here, font color, notice the letter beneath that color. And let's make it white. There we go, looks good. Now the cells have limited space. If I start typing into a cell, it might seem like I have unlimited space, but as soon as I start typing in the next cell, let's do a bunch of A's. It covers up my other cell because they can't overflow into the next cell. Let me see if I can backspace. Oh no, it's this one. There we go. So what we want to do is we're going to format these columns. So all you need to do is select multiple columns. So I'm going to do a click and hold. So certainly you could do one column at a time. I'll show you first with one column and then with multiple. So if I want to resize the column, I just simply drag my mouse to the edge of this column. I usually go with the right edge and then I resize it to my liking. There you go. Date is nice and big. But I want this table to look nice, so I'm gonna hit my Command Z or Control Z to undo that. I want this table to look nice, so I want all these columns to be identical in their size. So if we want to resize multiple, we got to select multiple. I'm gonna go to the right edge, not of one cell, but of all 4 cells. And I'm just gonna drag it to where I want all 4 cells to end. There you go. Now this looks nice. This looks much nicer than before. I can actually see the headers. Let's go ahead and start entering data. And this is where Excel is powerful in its auto completion. It's always looking for patterns as you're typing in data. It's always trying to help you do things faster. And if you'll notice in the Sheets demo, it does this even more intelligently. So I definitely got to give props to Sheets. Although I have to always mention Excel, and just like Word, they're always more jam-packed with features. So if you're doing an advanced type of document, advanced type of spreadsheet, Microsoft is definitely the winner. All right, so let's see. Let's go ahead and type in a date. So 01-01, let's go 2021. All right, so let's make that our starting date. I'm just gonna hit enter once I'm finished typing. And there you go. Notice that Excel reformatted that date. It automatically detected it as a date, so it's gonna format it into its own date format. You can definitely mess with this format. We'll talk about that in a sec. But just know that Excel recognizes this as a date. All right, so I can certainly start typing in one date at a time. So 1-2-21, 1-3-21. That gets very, very repetitive. So all you need to do in order to use the power of Excel, so we're going to go ahead and delete those. Notice I selected both of those, hit delete. If you really want to use the power of Excel, we want to use that autocomplete feature. And that autocomplete feature is here on the corner of the cell. When you click and drag this corner, whether it be downwards or to the right, usually downwards is where the more meaningful patterns happen. So if I drag this downwards, let's see what Excel does. You can already see a preview, right? If I want to fill in the first week, I'm just going to go down to that I got to go down to 8. And check it out. Excel automatically knew, hey, we're working with the date. If my user drags down from that autocomplete icon on the bottom right of the cell, it's going to autofill all the dates for me. And I can do this down to tons of dates, which is extremely useful. Imagine having to type those first few hundred dates all by yourself. That would be terrible. So I'm gonna go ahead and Command Z because I just want the first week. All right, so yeah, let's notice what it does for regular numbers, right? So pay rate. So pay rate shouldn't change, right, from week to week. I'm gonna put 20. When you type in a single cell value, right, there's not much of a pattern there. So if I drag and autocomplete, Excel's gonna say, okay, not much of a pattern, so I'm just gonna repeat the number that you had. So in this case, Excel repeated the number. Now hours worked, this is something I have to punch in, right? There's not really a pattern to it. So I'm gonna type in some different hours at work. So let's say I had a 12-hour shift, then a 10-hour shift. Maybe I didn't work this day. Let's go with, let's go with 6-hour shift, 8-hour shift, 4-hour shift, and another 12-hour shift. Now, if I try to autocomplete one of these, right, if I do it off of one number, not much is going to happen. It's going to give me more 12s. You can actually select multiple numbers. And here, what Excel will do is find a pattern. So I'll do it here off to the side. So let's say I type a 1 and then, I don't know, like a 0. If I select these two cells, Excel's going to try to find a pattern. So the pattern Excel found is that, oh, we're going down by 1 from the first cell to the next. So it's going to keep going down by 1. I'll do it here where maybe there's a difference of 2. So in order to unlock the pattern, right, I have to select both cells. If I select one, remember, it's only going to repeat that number, so I got to select both. And notice, it says, oh, the one number went 2 up from the previous one, so there you go. Yeah, so Excel's always looking for patterns, right? Some patterns, right, just like hours worked, not really a pattern there, so you're going to have to type that in on your own. Excel can't read minds, right? Okay, so total pay. So obviously total pay is going to be your pay rate multiplied by your hours worked. So 20 times 12. So I can certainly do that in my head. I'm pretty quick at this. So 240, 200. So I'm just multiplying pay rate times hours worked. 20 times 6, 120. 160. This would be 80. And this would be 240 again. All right, so I got my total pay pretty fast, right? But if I had, 1,000 of these rows, typing in total pay and doing all the math in my head, not the best way to do this. Especially humans, prone to mistakes, right? You make me do this 1,000 times. It doesn't matter how good I am at math, I'm going to make a mistake. So how do I use the power of Excel? So one of the big features of Excel is formulas. So how do we get a formula, a calculation in our Excel? So the built-in feature is activated by the equal sign. So here inside this box, I'm gonna type in equal. As soon as I type in equal, I get this little formula input. Now I don't have to type the formula there. I can continue to type it in my cell, but it's gonna show me, hey, you're now working with a formula. You're now gonna be calculating numbers. So how do I how do I multiply my 20 times my 12? So all you gotta do is, all right, so in order to get the 20 times 12 here, right, all I have to do is type in the cell name, right? So 20 here is at B2. Notice if I hover over it, it's already letting me know, so I'm gonna type in B2. And to multiply, right, generally on a computer, it's going to be their asterisk symbol, so shift 8. And then I'm going to type in the next cell, which would be C2. Whoops, C2. So notice it's already highlighting those cells. It's already letting me know which cells I'm working with, which ones I typed in. So it's saying this cell will be equal to B2 times C2. Let's go ahead and hit enter, and notice it did the calculation for me. And remember, it's Excel's biggest feature is that autocomplete, right? So if I drag this down from the bottom right, Excel is going to repeat that formula row by row. And everything I just did, manually by hand, in my head, just calculating, Excel did that for me just by dragging from that bottom right. So this is the power of Excel, right? It's trying to help you. It's trying to identify patterns. It's trying to make your life easier when you're calculating these numbers, right? Entering numbers and so forth. So yeah, that's how Excel really makes numeric data more organized, easier to enter, easier for you to transform, right, those numbers into meaningful data for you. So in this case, the example of your salary, it would totally calculate, right, for several years, months, whatever you want, could calculate your total pay. All right, so a few issues here that we'll address in a sec, but one more calculation we'll do is here at the bottom. So we have our total pay, right? But I want to know my weekly pay. So I'm at a little text here, weekly pay. I'm going to do the same editing. So I'm going to select the entire row of 9. Change the color. My color is already there. So I just got to click on the one. So notice it'll give you a preview of the previously selected color. And then I'm going to center that. And you know what? I'm going to highlight, I'm going to bold the text for my headers. So if I want to select 2 cells that are not next to each other, you just hit your control key. So I selected row 1, hold your control key, click on row 9. Whoops, I was not hitting control key. Let me try that again. And there you go. Notice it did select both of these. So I'll do it one more time. So here, so control on Windows, command on Mac. And notice both of these rows are selected. So if you want to select multiple rows, they're not next to each other, or multiple columns, you can just always hit Command to do a multi-select. All right, I'm gonna hit bold, so definitely they pop a little bit more. I'm gonna make these a little bit bigger too, so I'm gonna go to one of these. I'll make the height taller. So instead of going to the edge of the column, I'm gonna go to the edge of the row. If I drag it down, it gets a little bit bigger. I noticed that the I'm gonna hit Command or Control, right? If you're on Windows, I noticed that these are not centered vertically, right? They're certainly centered horizontally. Notice right here, vertical line, so it says middle line. And there you go. Looks nice. All right, so weekly pay. Weekly pay is gonna go right here. So I could definitely do the math in my head. Just add everything. 240, 200, 120. That's not the best way to do this, right? Excel is all about, calculating numbers for us in addition to finding those patterns. So one of the most useful formulas here, it's actually built into Excel. It's called the sum. And if you notice, they already have it here auto-suggested here on your formula input. So this is, if I start typing a formula, this little toolbar, little input will pop up. So if I type in sum, notice it's already suggesting me different formulas. There's so many formulas in Excel, so if you get to like more advanced usage, there's definitely all kinds of tools for you to use there. So sum is all about adding many numbers together. So I'm gonna do sum. Anytime you're using an Excel pre-built function, so this is called a function. When I just do times, right, that's not really pre-built. I'm just doing the multiplication problem. When I'm using this keyword sum, this is a function. I need a parentheses. And notice it starts suggesting me, hey, make a list of all the numbers you want to add. So I could definitely do that. So I want to add D2, right? It's that second. Remember that first D1 is the header, so I can't add D1. In fact, if I do D1, I'll just show you what that looks like. If you ever do type in numbers into a words, text into a calculation, it sometimes will trigger an error. So this one didn't quite trigger the error. Let me try doing it just words. So let's say I did D1 and C1. So I try to add two headers together. We found a typo. I'm gonna put no. Oh, let me fix that. I put two parentheses. So it says 0, right? Something else you'll typically see when you start adding headers instead of numbers, you'll see like a value error. Let's see if I can trigger one of those. Let me do D1 times C1, or let's do C2. There you go. There's the value error. So that just means, hey, you probably tried to do a calculation with something you couldn't calculate, right? You can't calculate multiplication on text, right? It has to be numbers. So if you ever see that, just know, hit undo and try again. So let's see. Let's go back to my blank. So I'm gonna hit equals sum. Remember, sum is that function to add multiple numbers. So I can type them in one at a time. D2, D3, comma, right? I'm separating them by commas because it showed me there. D4, D5. There is a better way to do this though. But I'm gonna keep doing it. D6, D7, D8. And I think that's it. Yeah, D8. So I'm gonna close it with an ending parentheses. If you have a right parentheses, you need a left one. I hit enter, and that is the calculation. That's how much I made in the week. There is a better way to do this. So equals, we're gonna do sum again. We're gonna do our parentheses. You can actually just select all the cells you want to add. So I'm gonna click and hold and then drag my mouse over all these 7 cells. I'm gonna let go, I'm gonna hit enter. Same thing. Notice multiple ways to do the same thing. We're using the power of functions, right? We're having Excel do the calculations for us. And remember, these formulas, I didn't type them in one at a time. I typed in it once, and then I used my autocomplete to fill in the rest. So using all those cool features so that Excel does the work for us, the heavy lifting. So a few problems here. Total pay. I like to see that it's money, right? So it should have like a dollar sign, a currency symbol. Same for pay rate, same for weekly pay. So let's go ahead and select all this text. So remember, if you want to select text that is not right next to each other, you can always use your command. So use command or control right if you're on Windows. And so I'm selecting all of these. So why am I selecting all these? Is because I want to make them money values. Excel actually has a way to do that. It's actually here on the formats. So this is how you can edit the format. So this is where the date came in, right, on column A, the 1-1-21, that's a date. Excel also handles time, percentages, fractions, scientific notation, something I used back when I was in college because I used Excel for laboratory calculations. The one we're going to go with is currency. The default one, just for your own understanding, is general. That means there's no format. But let's go with currency for all these. There you go. All of these are now money values, right? It even added the cents for me, right? Which is clearly something, right, that should be on a currency format. This is date format. Notice when I clicked on the cell, it says date already here. So yeah, definitely feel free to try other formats out. Most commonly used ones, right, is money and dates. At the end of the day, if we're calculating numbers, right, if we're using this productivity software, money is always going to be, right, one of the most important applications. So yeah, that's it for this Excel demo. There's definitely way more features to Excel, right? You can even have graphs. You can transform this data into a visual component. If you start doing some of the other features, right, you can handle very complicated calculations. But for the most part, right, the most basic use of Excel is going to be, right, for this money keeping. So yeah, this should be everything you need to do lab 1. Definitely check out the next video on Google Sheets. That's my preferred spreadsheet software. So yeah, check that video out and you'll see maybe it's better. Maybe you like Excel more. Definitely up to you which one you want to use for the lab and for the future. All right, thank you, class. Go ahead and click on to the